All right, welcome to episode number 211 of the Canadian Prepper Podcast. We are recording August the 13th, 2023. My name's Eric, host of the show based in Southern Ontario, a hunter, target shooter, ham radio operator, and computer geek. So first responder, witnessed an over-reliance on emergency services during major events. Started a small preparedness company to get people better prepared for at least 72 hours, if not longer.
And I'm the Frugal Gunny. I recently moved to Northern Ontario, pretty much in the middle of nowhere. An off-gridder, a shooter, hunter, fisher, gatherer, trapper type, and a generalist. And I only recently came to accept that I'm a prepper.
You see Melissa chirping us in the chat already. Yay. It's going to be one of those nights.
That's awesome.
If you want to help support the show, keep the Canadian Prepper Podcast on the air, you can buy some swag. We've got the Canadian Prepper Podcast t-shirt and the tactical Velcro patch available at prepperpodcast.ca. All the proceeds help keep the lights on and the backup generator fueled, and they give Melissa somewhere to come and chirp us on Sundays.
And if you're enjoying the show, please take a few minutes and like us on Facebook and submit a review on iTunes. Also, we want your feedback, whether good or bad, or just if there's a topic you want us to cover. You can email us at feedback@prepperpodcast.ca.
All right, so we've got some switching content for you in this episode. We'll start off with some recent news articles. We'll update you on our personal preps, and then we're going to get into the main topic. We're talking about gear swap over for the impending winter season that's coming up. Yes, I said it, and it's August.
Oh, yes. Somebody had to.
This is true. All right, so moving into the news. Got a quick article here from cabinradio.ca, and it talks about a Hay River region told to evacuate as Northwest Territories descends in the crisis is the title of the article. And it's talking about some wildfires in regards to that area. And this is actually the 8th time that the Northwest Territories community has been ordered to leave because of wildfire this summer. That's a lot of times to be told to evacuate.
Wow. I'm trying to imagine what it's like to do that.
Yeah.
Wow. I imagine
I have it 8 times.
Yeah. Do you start to live lightweight? What do you do?
I don't know. Yeah, you're just kind of getting. Oh yeah, like you're just kind of settling into home life again, and then you're told to pack up and get out. It's the second time that Hay River's been evacuated since May.
Wow.
It's talk about back-to-back evacuations. That's a
tough go. I feel for them.
Yeah, that's tricky, but just kind of brings home the whole wildfire episode that we did a few episodes ago, and just again, the whole kind of points out the fact that it's happening, and it's happening in Canada, and it could happen really anywhere. So,
does it ever?
But 8 times, I thought that was. That's a lot. So I figured this would be a good article to bring in just to open everybody's eyes to the fact that it can happen multiple times. And we're not talking just once or twice, 8 in the season.
Yeah, that's pretty wild. If any of you of our listeners are out there from that way out, please let us know how that is and how you're all doing. 8 evacuations. I'm trying to imagine what that's like. Wow.
Yeah, I couldn't imagine. And I see Pierre has jumped into the comments as well. It's going to be one of those nights. And I run the show, and I decided to make the start time 9:06 instead of 9 o'clock. So we were not late. We were actually right on time, Pierre. So there you go. All right, let's move into what we've done lately for prep, shall we?
Good call.
I'll let you go first, Gunny.
All right. Well, I've been doing all kinds of gear changeover. Managed to get a trip up to the cabin and spotted a couple of necessaries. Essentially, we're going to be talking tonight a little bit about that gear changeover, so I'll get into more detail with that in a bit. The other thing I've been doing is I'm helping out a friend with a solar setup. And that's
nice.
Been a lot of fun. We spent a good few days up there in the bush just working on his newly acquired cabin. So building a wall, building a bunk, building some storage in, and we had this really, actually, I believe it was him who had the great insight. He said, if you can get started building this solar setup and just put it all on a piece of board. And then when we're done, we'll just put the board up and screw it onto the wall. And I thought, that is brilliant. So I could just sit there on the ground. And so in the comfort of a fully mosquito protected environment with music and coffee and lighting, I was able to go ahead and build his circuits up. And so I've taken a little photo of that. But
Nice.
next time we're able to, I want to be starting to do some filming up there. It's just a beautiful area. There's a natural spring behind there. So I've been helping him up there. And I'm also doing turnover of truck gear. And that's all in line with what we're going to be talking about tonight. So I'm going to keep some of that for the main topic.
Awesome.
Stupid.
For myself, it's been work and then more work, a little bit more work and then work. It's been a little bit all consuming for the last week and a bit, but it is what it is. I was able to sneak a little bit of time today to get the ham radio set up a little bit more power. So I've got an amplifier all set up here now. So I made contact with a local ham here and got chatting. And next thing I knew, I've got a box of parts at the door and an amplifier on the desk. So that happens when you start talking to fellow hams. All of a sudden, they're like, "Hey, I've got this. Here you go." So
what a great community.
Oh, yeah, it's fantastic. And just, I picked it up from actually a ham in the area that I hadn't talked to before and was willing to just make contact through one that I have talked to and was willing to sit me down and show me how to use it and how to operate it and walk me through everything. And even said, you know what, you got problems or questions down the road, just call me up and I'll help you out with it. So it was fantastic. And now I can get all the FARs.
Brilliant.
So we'll have to do another episode down the road once I get this thing actually figured out. We'll do another ham radio episode and we'll fire it up and show all the FARs on another live stream of HF. So that was fun. The last episode.
That was a lot of fun. It was a great introduction. I've got my book here handy. I was showing it to you earlier there, but I'm looking forward to doing another dive into it as I read further in. So I'll be looking forward to that episode.
That'll be good. This thing will do about 600 to 800 watts right now. If I do some updates to it and throw a couple of bucks into it, it could go up to about a kilowatt to a kilowatt and a half. So we can push some real power with it if I want to go down some rabbit holes. And of course I do. So we'll see. We'll see what happens down the road.
But rabbit holes.
We'll keep her low power for now until, and by low power, I mean about 800 watts. So it's not actually low power, but we'll keep her a bit lower until I get comfortable with it. And then maybe I'll start tinkering.
Oh, very nice. Hey, I want to give a little shout out here to Dave on our chat. He says, an African colleague once told me, "You are never late, only delayed." I like that. I'm stealing that.
That's good. That's good. Yep.
Yeah, I'm going to steal that and I'm running with it.
There we go. So take that, Melissa and Pierre. All right. With that, we move into the main topic. So like we kind of alluded to, we were looking at doing a little bit of a talk, and we do this every year in and around this time, sometimes more into September versus August, but we figured we'd talk about gear swap and just getting ready for moving over into a new season because it's coming and it's coming quick. So we're going from the nice warm weather to the fun-filled, cold, dreary, snow-filled weather. Someone had to say it. It's coming. Just accept it. So we figured we'd do a little bit of talk. We might do another one later on down the road as we get closer, but we wanted to get everybody's mind started to think about the fact that old man winter's coming. The snow and the slush and the sleet and all that fun is going to be here before you know it. So we wanted people to kind of start putting their mind to the fact that we got to maybe start at least thinking about what we want to do with our stuff, thinking about how we want to switch our kits over, and how we need to get our residences ready and our place of living, wherever it may be, ready for that switch because, like I said, it's coming quick. So that was the idea for tonight. And you can see we've got some people in the live chat as well. So feel free to jump in and throw your ideas out there as well, because it helps kind of drive the conversation. So
yes, and a peanut gallery is always interesting and entertaining too.
It is, yes. Yep.
So feel free.
But like I said, it's we're going from warm weather, right? So you're used to carrying right now, some light clothing, maybe a light jacket or something like that, because even the evenings are fairly warm. And we're moving back into that scenario where you're bringing some bulkier stuff with you, right? You're bringing the bigger jackets. You're wearing a bigger jacket most likely as well, which means you can carry more things, which is nice. But on the other side of it, when you're carrying gear, uh, bulkier stuff, so bigger packs, takes up more room, right? It's you've now gotten used to the last couple of months of carrying less. It's time to get back to that mindset of carrying not necessarily more, but bulkier.
Definitely. There was a saying that I remember back when I wore green. If you're carrying light, you're probably not going to live long in the cold. So we're not yet in that bitter cold, but
Yep.
we're already in that period where if you're out by a campfire in mid-August, like we are now, out
Yep.
by a campfire in the middle of the night, say 11 midnight, it starts to get cool enough that if you're in shorts and t-shirt, your teeth are going to chatter. And you might need to start putting on layers. So I've already had to do that a couple of times, pull out the odd sweater and the heavier pants. So absolutely, you've got the clothing changeover. But what I've noticed also is that when my pack gets heavier, I also like to have heavier footwear. So I have better support when I'm carrying all that weight around.
Good call. Yep. Swap the sandals for boots.
That's right. Sandals switch over to boots, and I'll normally keep a set of sandals or something as a backup in the truck in case I ever get a foot soak, because that's always fun. But definitely you start looking at your layers getting changed or adding to them. It's still that awkward time when you might be cool enough in the morning where you need that sweater and maybe even a light jacket on. But by 3 p.m, if you're on the go and moving too, you're now sweating and wishing you were in shorts and a t-shirt. So it's an awkward time of the year when your pack is unusually heavy and you're wearing stuff just for short periods of time when you're in the outdoors.
Yeah, or you could just be like Dave in the live chat and mention the fact that we just moved to Kentucky. We've still got temps in the 80s this week. And we could very well hit that too. We could start out cold morning, and then by the afternoon, all of a sudden it is hot again, and you're right down the shorts and the t-shirt. And then in the evening, you're right back into long sleeves and jeans again because the 80 has dropped. So
definitely,
you know what? I would take just the 80 all the way around all season, but doesn't happen here.
No, we get that nice little dynamic 4 seasons business happening that a lot of our American friends also experience, so they know
this
all
is true.
that.
Yep.
Yeah.
Darius has a good point in the live chat as well. This is rather than worry about heavier footwear, just switch the footwear with better support.
Well, in actuality, that's what I've been kind of doing. I usually have a couple of pieces of footwear in the truck, and if any of you are listening in by now, you probably know my truck is my mobile base. And so I usually keep a couple of different pairs of footwear in there so that when we get those heavy swings and temps, if it's just stifling, I can get into sandals. And the other thing I keep in there is my hiking boots. So when I am carrying heavier gear or in the rockier, heavier terrain, I like wearing those. I like having that support. But just hanging around in the city, visiting friends in their backyards, that's sandal type stuff.
Yeah, absolutely.
And my gosh, you got some serious temps, Darius. 29 degrees. That's Celsius. It's 29 Celsius. That is warm.
But it was 14 this morning, he says.
But 14, yeah. So that's a 15 Celsius swing. That's pretty high. It's a big enough swing that it's difficult to have one item of clothing for the entire day unless you're just wearing light wool. And it's all light wool.
Yeah, and that's why we said this time of year is just almost impossible to plan for, because we just saw it there with Darius's example of the different temperatures at his place and how big the swing is. You could pack your go bag or your get home bag or your bug out bag or whatever you want to call it, thinking that it's going to be 14 all day and they need some warm clothes, like warmish clothes, right? And then all of a sudden you get smack dab in the middle of the day and you're up to, 20, 25, 29 going, the clothes I packed are not going to help me. They're going to make this situation worse. So it is a very interesting time of year. And I always find it fun to plan for this kind of dynamic because you almost can't, right? You're just going to overpack and you have way too much stuff. It's a tricky time of year.
It's very true. I'm considering changing up this year all of my base layers, and it's interesting that Darius is mentioning that's the very same thing. In the past, I was wearing a lot of synthetic base layers, and I had a mixture of very thin ones for down to -10, -15. If you're on the go and moving, you don't want a heavy layer on there. You just want a thin layer, and it was typically polypro, but we're talking like 90s tech, right? And so for for those of you listening in, that's really old when it comes to base layers. So today we have all these really nice high-tech merino thin layers. There's a number of different brands out there. Smart Wool's one of them. There's a few others. And the beautiful thing about those is they pack really lightly and small and compact compared to some of the other base layers I'm used to having, like the Polar Tech type layers. Those are really thick and really heavy, and I find that a thin wool is probably going to breathe a lot better for the active individual who might switch between being active and not so active. And on a very hot day, that's the difference between getting really soaked in sweat and being uncomfortable and not. And that's a funny time of the year where it'll get really hot and then it'll get really cold. Yep. So there's this advice to have multiple layers, and that's something I do. Lately, what I'm carrying is a thin sweater in the pack, and then I will have lightweight, breathable pants and jacket that I can quickly toss on if there's a heavy rain, because we've been hit with some pretty heavy rains while I was out and about in the bush. So I was really grateful to have those lightweight layers. Throw those on. If they're in your go bag, a day where you get soaked and you might be miserable, not a big deal because you had your rain gear with you, right? So it's that time of the year where you just want to have access to them, but you don't want to have too much because it just gets really out of hand. So it's that time of the year where I still have some mosquito gear around, but I don't have any bug juice around.
Right.
I won't have the mosquito coils. Don't really need a thermocell anymore because, you can tell me that you're all tough and coat yourself with mud every time you go outside. Right on. You're hardcore. Awesome. But I'm not like that.
Nope.
I know I can, but I prefer to be comfortable and also be presentable when and if I come out of the bush and I need to go to the store and deal with people.
Right.
Because they might look at you funny if you come out full of mud. So there's certain solutions that are really great, but not practical. So this is one of those things where if you're living in Canada, you're out in the bush, you got to deal with bugs. You can have a little bit of gear with you, or you can have a lot, depending on what you do. I typically have a lot because I'm doing all kinds of stuff at any time of the year. But it's that time of the year now where I can start to scale it back. I can keep a little bug net for my head. And because I have longer layers that are breathable, we're good, right? So there's different ways to cope with minimizing your gear. Because you're taking on other gear, I like to scale back on anything that I can get rid of.
Right.
Unfortunately, there's not a whole lot of summer stuff that I will be getting rid of completely. This is the pack gets bigger and heavier and gets swapped out. So I'm sure you find the same thing with yours.
Yeah, I find things definitely shift around. The clothing is always the tricky thing to kind of get your head wrapped around. And no matter what you do, and no matter what you pack, you're wrong. Yes. Because that's just the way Mother Nature goes, right? She knows what you packed, so she just throws something else at you that you weren't ready for, and you're never going to get it right. So just try to pack what you think is right, and then just laugh at yourself when you find out you're wrong. And just be thankful at least you got something with you that you can use to get out of whatever situation you're in. And yeah, if you're soaking wet, you've got, you change into something that's a little bit warmer. Well, at least you're dry. You're going to be a little extra warm, but at least you're dry, right?
Exactly. It's temporary.
I see a little bantering back and forth in the live chat here amongst a couple of panelists that were not on this evening. And just going to point out that Pierre is giving Darius a bit of a rough time about not using his cell phone to hop in today on the show. Pierre, you're also using a phone. It would work on your phone as well, and we can't help but notice you are not here as well. So, yeah.
I believe the pot might be calling the kettle black.
Yes, yeah. Just figured I'd call you out on that.
Possibly.
Let's look at some other things. We focused pretty intensely on clothing, which is a big part of the whole switchover. But
and as a reminder, if I can interrupt you for a second,
of course,
here, bud, and be rude. Why is clothing so important? We talk about the rules of threes, right? Mm-hmm. I can go 3 hours in environmental situations. So in a rainfall, I can go hypothermic after 3 hours being in the rain. If I get soaked in a cold river, I can get ill and get very sick within 3 hours if I don't take care of that hypothermia. I can go 3 days without water. Those 3 days will be very uncomfortable and horrific if you get to day 3. But you can go 3 days and you can go 3 weeks without food. So priority is definitely weather. And unless you're carrying a rolling shelter with you at all times, you should probably be dressed in some way, shape, or form for the environmental conditions. So that's the end of that sermon. So let's consider what is important for the clothing. Well, it's because it's an odd time of the year. And so if you're not ready for the environmentals, you can mess yourself up. If it's a 25-degree swing like I saw earlier today, I was out in just jeans and jean pants and running shoes and a t-shirt, and I was almost too hot and sweaty, but I was out in the bush moving an ATV. So I didn't really want to be in shorts because I'm out in the bush, right? I prefer to be in pants during those days. It's one of those situations where if I'm sitting still, not moving around, I'm in the truck moving, that's not so bad. But if all of a sudden I'm moving a lot of heavy gear in and out of the forest, now I'm going to be sweating. And so you get very uncomfortable very quickly. And when you're in the 25 to 26 degree range and you're sweating heavy, it doesn't take long for you to feel uncomfortable and not have a great day. And so it's easier when you can be properly prepared, be ready for the clothing thing. So I had shorts and I knew I could switch into them or sandals, right? And what I did is I actually changed footwear when I was done, out of boots into shoes, and that cooled me down. Right. So I find it's just that odd time of the year where having a whole lot of different clothing items is really useful. It gets cold enough that your teeth will chatter at night, and that will differ from person to person, of course. But generally, that temperature starts to happen when it's under 16 degrees. Environmentally, people can start getting the teeth chatter if they're not properly dressed. It doesn't take much, right? And if it's a little damp, that'll hit you even harder. And we got a really great comment here from Darius.
Sure do. Yeah, that's why I figured we'd highlight it. Just mentions that an important note on the whole rule of threes, that only counts if you're fully hydrated and fed to begin with. So if you start out and you're not fully fed, you're not fully hydrated, that rule of threes has already started, and it started a little while ago, right? Before you were even thinking about, okay, I'm in a pretty bad situation here. Now I got to start thinking about, I've got 3 hours for this, 3 days for that, 3 weeks, It started a little while ago before you were even thinking about that you were going to be in this situation. So that's a fantastic comment from Darius.
This is a great point to mention. 100%.
Yeah.
We were told in the day when I wore green, if you're feeling thirsty, it's too late. You haven't been drinking enough.
Yep.
So they just hammered that into our heads. And again, it's not a big deal when it's really cold outside, although you can easily lose your hydration when it's cold out. It's happened to me before, so I know it can happen. It's a bit less likely, but if you start off on a hydration deficit, as Darius mentions, it's very easy, very, very easy to dehydrate yourself. So yes, good point. And the clothing is a major factor in that.
Yep.
So let's not discount the clothing.
No.
So it's that time of the year where I'm doing that changeover. And for all you hunting aficionados, I'm also starting to gather my hunting gear and prepare my hunting gear other than just clothing. So we're talking about zeroing rifles, from training ammo back to hunting ammunition. We're talking about doing maintenance on the crossbow or the bow if you're running a bow for your hunts. There is potentially changeover in your shelter gear, so your tenting arrangements. In my case, I do the hammock thing. So when I'm using my hammock in the full summertime, I don't need all those insulative layers that it comes with, so I can leave those packed away in storage. But this is the time of the year when I like to have that extra layer in the pack for that hammock in case it does cool down. I can be really comfortable. So that's all part of the hunting gear switchover. And I include my truck as part of that. So this includes tires, rims, recovery gear. I start to have more shovels around at this time of the year. Not that we have a whole lot of snow yet. Oh yeah, I used that 4-letter word.
Oh no.
I said it first, so you can blame me, everybody. When that hits, I don't like to be caught unprepared. Typically in the city in Canada, in the more southern latitudes, we seem to have issues with that. I'm talking to you, Toronto. But Ottawa is just as bad. Vancouver, you can be forgiven. Y'all don't get much snow over there. I want to winter in Vancouver, by the way. We'll figure that out someday. But Toronto, man, tragic the way they handle their winter changeover. And Ottawa's not much better from my experience. So if your city is also a horror show when the seasons change over, let us know, because
I think everyone's going to let us know.
yeah, it'll blow everything up on that one.
Yep.
So I like to have everything ready in my truck for that season changeover, including snow tires. And that's not something I do anytime yet, but I start lining things up. Where are the snow tires? So, because I do my own changeovers. Like a lot of people out there, I keep a separate set of rims, and I save a lot on that maintenance aspect of it.
And even if you don't do your own changeovers, start to mark in the calendar when you're going to call the shop to book yourself in, because there's going to be that wave and you're not going to get in, right? Yeah. So call ahead and book it now, even if the shop will let you do it. Because then you're, even a month or so ahead, maybe 2 months.
Right? Yeah, if you're dealing with a shop that does tires right now, they will love having you, because this is their slow time of the year for tires. They got all the time in the world to handle your tires and your rim work. When things get really crazy, those poor mechanic shops, they're just swamped, and they're booking you for 2-3 weeks ahead. That's when people scramble and it gets stressful. Man, do yourself a favor, do it up front. So the other thing that I do is I keep an eye on the temperatures. When the average temperature starts to drop below 7 degrees, I'm already thinking getting into that switch, and I'm usually there. So that generally happens here in this area sometime in October, November. I like to have them on, and then I'm good to go.
Then talking cooler weather. So we've gotten into the whole clothing thing, but a lot of people will also carry, water, liquids, food, that kind of thing with them in their go bags. Keep in mind, water freezes and that's going to sneak up real quick. Right. Or if you're carrying like cans of anything, if you're a pop drinker and you're carrying pop in your kit or any kind of other carbonated drink, that freezes. And it'll all of a sudden one morning you'll come out and the can will be burst in the bottom because it's frozen overnight, and you're going to go, well, Now all the clothing that I switched over is covered in whatever liquid I had in my bag. And now I'm starting from scratch. Right. And it's caught me before off guard where all of a sudden that exact thing has happened. I've gone, I knew it. And I just didn't think to do it.
I've lost hydration bags because of that.
Right.
That's a dumb way to lose a camelback, just as Gregory mentioned. So, if you've got a camelback, if you've got a hydration bag that you keep in the pack, just get that hose cleared out, empty out the bag. There's other ways to carry water around in the wintertime than the bag. There's a hard metal canteen. If you don't fill it all the way up, if you fill it, say, about 3/4 of the way up, when it freezes, there's plenty of room and air for that ice to expand and then shrink and do whatever it's doing. And the bonus of having it in a steel bottle or a steel can is you can actually heat it up directly on a flame, and now you're melting ice. And it's always more efficient to melt ice with a flame than snow. So you're better off having a frozen block of ice that only uses up about 3/4 of that metal can or metal bottle than having any other means to carry your water, because at least with a bit of fire, and you all know how to make a fire, right?
I would hope so.
With a fire, you can quickly turn that little block of ice into water, drinkable very efficiently compared to snow, which is such a waste of a fire to melt down. So, keep that in mind. Absolutely. That's a really good point. And for those of you who are doing food preps like myself up at the cabin right now, I've got a whole bunch of cans and enough to fill a small bin. Well, that's one of the things I'm going to be grabbing when I do the close up. So I'm already starting to think ahead of the closing procedures and what I got to make sure I do up there before I walk away. And that includes, currently right now, you should be looking at your gutters because the fall season rains are heavy, and that's usually going to exacerbate any flow issues you have in those gutters. So I'm already thinking of that when I go back up. The rain barrels as well, putting away all of the stuff that is just not at all necessary in the summertime, like coolers. I can stack those away for the wintertime, et cetera, et cetera. And if you're heating with firewood, shouldn't you already have your cords of wood already stacked?
You can always stack more, though. Just ask Jeff. I think he's 2 years ahead now.
Yes, brilliant. Yep. If you're a few years ahead, then you're off to a great start. Yep. You can, at that point, weather a major extreme. When you get a heavy, crazy winter with lots of cold snaps, when you've got 2 years of wood up front or out back, it's not a worry. Yep. So now that I'm no longer living full time at the cabin, I don't have to worry about having a whole winter's worth of wood up there. But I do have a few cords lined up ready. So if I need to go spend a few weeks there, no problem at all. But it is that time of the year where I'm normally speeding up my wood gathering and also starting to put things away. The fall time is when the rodents and the mice really hit hard as it starts to get cold. They head indoors, right? So this is a good time to do that cleanup as well prior to putting everything away for the winter time. So I'm also doing that.
And you touched on a good point as well for those that have alternate locations. It's time to start getting ready to get those packed away for the winter. Like we've kind of focused on just your everyday stuff that you carry with you or you have in your vehicle for everyday travel and such. But those alternate locations need maintenance. They need to be, shut down for the winter if you're not going to be there, or just prepared for the winter if you are going to still be using it. And same for your primary residence, whatever it may be. It's time to start looking at the gutters there, looking at the exterior, looking at your property. What do you have to clean up or get ready? Do you have to move some things into place if you salt or sand? Do you have to move things into place for that? Do you have to cut down some of your your garden, get that looked after, get it ready. Do you have to remove anything out of your garden bed to put it away for the winter, for lack of a better term, right? There's all that too that you have to start looking at and get planned for now, because items are available now. You can get them, but once everybody else shifts to that mindset as well shortly, it's going to be trickier to get some of the stuff you need to put your gardens away or clean up your property and get it ready for winter, or do any of that kind of rain gutter stuff or maintenance type of work. Get ahead of the rush now, because you're not the only person thinking about it. You might be the only person thinking about it now, but once the temperatures really drop, everybody's going to be thinking about it.
Definitely.
So it's time to get ahead of the rush.
And that includes all of your motors. So any of your lawnmowers that you're packing away, it might be time to start thinking of winterizing them, prepping them. I've seen people are already starting to pull their boats out in anticipation of returning to work from vacation. The other major thing is anything that has water. If you've got a trailer with water systems, of course, you've got to be concerned about coolant, making sure you've got antifreeze, not coolant, antifreeze in there. That's a really important deal. The other big thing is all those little motors. I've got a snowmobile, for example, needs to be prepared for the winter time. It was left out, and so it needs to have some maintenance done on it. Cars, sometimes you have to prepare them for the winter time. That's typically when battery issues start to show up.
I was just going to say, I usually top my batteries off, leave them on the charger, get my my little booster pack ready to go, make sure it's fully charged and operational, like all those little things, right?
Yeah, and now is the time when I want to line up the generators. I've got a big generator I'm going to bring over for my little missus, so that if she does have a power outage in the middle of the wintertime, she's got a means to power up at least her furnace, which is a gas furnace. A lot of gas furnaces that are residential will not work without some sort of backup power. And so when you have a generator hooked up to a house, unless it is centrally located to the house and able to handle the entire capacity of what's on the house, you're probably going to have to rotate things in and out. But in this case, you want to make sure that at the very least on that furnace, you've got the fan and everything able to turn over and connect to the generator so that you can safely operate everything without an issue. You might have to just rotate it out. So I'm already thinking of all the mechanics of moving everything into place for that, because I want to have that in place prior to the need. As everybody knows, it's when you're not ready that
is when you'll need it.
That's right.
Another thought. So not only just putting those small engines to bed and ready for winter, the engines that you put away for the summer, it's time to start getting them ready too, right? So if you haven't done that oil change yet on them, or you haven't checked the belts, or you haven't checked the spark plugs or any of that kind of stuff, it's time to get them ready to go, because after that first snow, you're going to be going for that snowblower, and if it doesn't start, there'll be some words flying, right? Oh, yes. So, and guaranteed, Murphy's Law, right? It's just not going to start, and we're going to get that first dumping of snow, and it's not going to be fun. So make sure all those winter toys are ready to go now, and then you'll be happy when the first snow flies. You'll just be laughing, just going, and your neighbors will probably be cursing and swearing, going, "Why didn't I do that?" Right?
Definitely, it's the vehicle is a big part of the preparedness for me as well. I'm thinking of a number of things I need to get done on this thing before the winter. Recovery gear. If you're out and about in the wintertime, one of the things that happens the most is that you get stuck in snow or you end up in a ditch. So I like to make sure my recovery gear is always lined up, particularly for the changeover to wintertime. So that includes the winch, anything you need to handle off-road situations, or I used the winch to help people out of the ditch more than I used it for my own self for the first few times. So if you're a good Samaritan type, you might want to make sure you've got your gear lined up for that sort of occasion as well, because it's that time of the year people are. And
you may even want to add a few things to the gear that you normally don't carry in the summer kind of months versus the winter, just because they're simply not of any use in the summer versus wintertime. So something that can help you get some more traction with snow. And of course, depending on where you're driving and where you find yourself, you might need help with traction if you're way out in the middle of nowhere running, trails and such. Yeah. But if you're just doing regular city runs or town runs and that kind of stuff, you might not need something to help you with traction during the summer. But in the wintertime, yeah, 100%. You're going to run into that scenario where either yourself or someone else is stuck. So kind of turning your mind to what kind of gear you need for that versus when you're not likely to get into a situation where traction's an issue. It's turning your mind to that as well, and just reminding yourself what it's like when the snow flies, because we all like to forget as we're going through the summer.
Very much so. It's so easy, isn't it? We complain about bugs,
it is, yeah.
We complain about the heat,
And then all of a sudden, here's old man winter.
Yeah. Fortunately, I usually have my hunting gear at the ready, and I'm usually excited at the season changeover because it means hunting season is upon us. So I'm not usually unaware of winter coming.
Yep.
Well, sometimes what occurs, and I hope everybody is listening carefully to this, sometimes what happens is that your plans get changed on you. Situations occur, and you all of a sudden don't have time to do everything you had anticipated you would have time to do.
Right.
And that's what typically happens the most with the people that I know. They're busy people. They've got children. They got businesses. They've got jobs, right? Things happen. Things slip. There's urgencies. There's unexpecteds, right? And next thing you know, something slips, and bam, you're caught unprepared, right?
I'll do it tomorrow syndrome.
Yes, I'm guilty of that myself.
Me too.
I'm super guilty of that with all the things.
Yeah, there's been a lot of times where I've been saying I'll do that tomorrow for a year. Tomorrow's here. I'm not ready for this scenario.
No.
But you know what? It is what it is, right? We're only human.
Yeah, exactly. And sometimes you're already partially prepared for that other scenario. So because you're partially prepared, you'll focus your attention on other things. Human nature.
You got it.
Exactly. The same way.
No, it's like I said, it's that interesting time of year where everybody's just comfortable with the temperatures we've been used to. They're comfortable with the weather we're used to. It's been a lot more rain this summer. I'll give everybody that, at least. There's been a lot more of that we haven't really been used to the last little bit. But it's all of a sudden it's going to just switch very quickly out of nowhere. And like you said, I'll do it tomorrow. I'll do it tomorrow. I'll do it tomorrow. Snow. Right. So that's why I wanted to kind of just have a little reminder episode of it's coming. And it's, time to start turning your mind to the fact that old man winter's around the corner. We can't fight it. Just embrace it. It's time to just start getting ready for it.
I'm at the point now where it's the time of the year where I realize probably not going to get all those zillion little projects that I had anticipated getting done. I'm lucky I'll get one, maybe two done. But then old man winter is going to be on me and kicking my butt again. So
and it's time to start again.
That's right. So time to hunker down and get her ready. And that's exactly the phase I've been in the last few weeks. I'm doing a little bit of the vacation thing as well.
Well, of course. You got to relax a little bit.
You have to a little bit. I've been giving myself that, but I'm also allowing myself to think about hunt season and the big turnover, including the truck and all that good stuff. And these are good things to do. My system for reminding myself and not forgetting is to actually write it down on a piece of paper with good old fashioned hand and pen or pencil. That's my way. Yeah,
hey, can't lose it that way. Well, you can lose it that way, but it's not going to just disappear like certain computer files like to do.
That's right. And the other thing that I found, and you can game yourself a little bit, and that's what I do when I write it down on a piece of paper. I'm probably going to lose that piece of paper. I know this. However, I also know that having written it down, there's a part of it that enters a deeper part of my memory, and I'm able to recall it much further out than I thought. So I tend to write it down now more often than tap it into anything or type it into anything, because once typed, it's already out of my memory. It's gone.
Yep.
But if I write it down and I forget that piece of paper and I'm at the grocery store and I'm trying to remember the 5 things that I told my missus that I was going to get, well, guess what? If I wrote them down by hand with that piece of pen or paper, there's really high odds I'm going to recall them all. I'm going to come home and feel like a hero, even though I did nothing special. So there you go.
The mind is a funny thing. I find that exact same thing. If I write something down, chances are I'm going to remember it. It might not be that I remember it in time for it to be useful, but I'll remember it.
Yes. Let's admit that this does nothing to increase or improve recall speed. It just aids in recall. Yeah. Sometimes it'll pop back to me at the weirdest times, like, oh yeah. Yep. But usually it stays in there pretty well. I think that's why in a lot of professions they still rely a lot on hand notes, like the legal profession.
Mm-hmm.
You want to see people who still handwrite a lot of things. Legal profession, law enforcement profession, the customer relations profession. There's still a desire to handwrite things when you're talking to people. So that's something that I do to remember and not forget. Handwrite it. And if you don't like writing with a pencil or pen, I don't know what to do for you. But this is the way.
Crayon, anybody?
Crayon.
Yeah.
Bingo dabber.
Oh, there you go. Yeah. Magic marker. Yeah. The smelly ones.
Yeah. You can draw your finger, draw in the sand with a finger. That's the old school. Really old school.
Yep. Mm-hmm. Yep.
If you don't like getting your finger dirty, you can use a stick. That's right.
Yep. Mm-hmm. I like it.
Yeah, we've veered way off topic. But
we have, but that, that happens on this podcast. Squirrel, and then we come back, right?
Yes, that's good. We got ourselves back though. That's not bad.
We did, yeah. Well, like I said, I just want to do a quick episode on just kind of getting everybody's mind set towards the winter months, because it's coming. Quick reminder: we're not doing a huge deep dive into it, but just a couple of pointers, a couple of things to start changing your mindset, a couple of things to start switching out. And get kind of the mind thinking, because Old Man Winter will be here shortly, but I don't want to beat a dead horse with that either.
No, true, and it's not quite time yet to like grab our snow shovels and the salt and sand and all that.
Nope, not yet.
No, but it's good to start thinking about it.
Gentle reminder, right? Just that it's coming.
Yes, a lot of us have already checked our supplemental tags and our additional tags. I got none this year. So it'll just be a buck that I'll be hunting for this year, and maybe bear. We'll see. Nice. I see a little note here from Dan. It says it's a good time to grab great deals on summer spring stuff for next year and beat inflation. Yes.
Yeah.
Great point. You are into fishing gear, boating gear, summer stuff, now's the time to grab it.
Absolutely, it is.
Yep. And it's also an interesting time of the year to also buy fall stuff, because it's may not be yet fully priced. I've noticed that in a lot of retail environments, they will favorably price fall and winter stock to try and help move it and get people into the stores and move the traffic in there. So you might be able to find some good winter deals. If you do, please let us know. I like it. Absolutely too.
Awesome. Well, any final thoughts before I move on into the podcast challenge?
Just a really random one.
Sure, really go for it.
If you're a shooter, temperatures start to change around this time of the year. So just keep that in mind with your velocities. It's probably not enough to change points of aim, but if you're into a lot of the precision of the long range work, the environmentals are enough to change that up. So keep an eye on those things, and always keep that powder dry, of course. That's what I got for you. That was my last random.
Nice. Nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with that. All right. Well, we will move into the podcast challenge then. So your podcast challenge for this episode: start thinking about gear swap over and start putting some of it into practice. So like we talked about, start moving some of that clothing around. Start thinking about when you're going to take the liquids out of your pack, or cut them down and leave a little bit of room for expansion, or how you want to deal with that, and just start putting your mind to it. There's no rush yet, but saying that I'm going to do it tomorrow is going to come to an end eventually. So it's time to just start thinking about it, and maybe set a deadline for yourself that this day is going to be my tomorrow, and I'm going to swap everything over. So. All right. Upcoming events is blank for this episode. We're going to be working on sourcing out some events for you, but right now, nothing in the queue. Nothing. Jeff's not here to give us a weather blurb, so no weather blurb. We do have an email here from John, and it goes back to the tornado episode, so I'll give that a read here. It says, went through a tornado in Suffolk, VA in 2008. It was a wedge-shaped E3 with a 20-mile path of destruction. The TV weatherman said that there was a report of a funnel cloud in my area, and would someone tell him if it was true. Of course, I went outside, didn't get 3 steps before I heard the noise, and he's got the noise in quotes. I instinctively knew what it was. The path of destruction missed my house by 100 yards. The medical complex across the lake had the entire roof stripped off. There was massive destruction further along the path. We all had our neighbors we and all our neighbors were without injury. So happy to hear that, at least. Says, I'm surprised that no one mentioned the green color of tornado skies. Most people forget that a tornado is a 3-dimensional event. Inspecting the area after the event, it was easy to see where the descending tornado had met the treetops of the forest and the downward path of destruction until it finally reached the ground. I love your recommendation of a helmet and would add body armor to that. If you have some, I believe that the bathtub recommendation comes from in the old days when bathtubs were cast iron with an enamel finish. As for the hide in the ditch theory, I remember it as being taught as an option if you're in a car in the open, flat ground. The theory was supposed to be that if it was more likely to pick up the car than to pick you up out of the ditch. Of course, these were some people who are the same people who thought us to duck and cover when the bomb dropped. He goes, keep up the great work, and signs it off, John. So
thank you, John.
Some good points in there. Some chuckles too, which is always appreciated. But good call on the body armor. If it's available to you, anything will help, right?
Now I can give people a reason for why I have those plates in the truck.
There's multiple tornado. They're tornado plates.
That's right.
Just draw a little squiggle tornado on them, like tornado plates. Yeah.
They're not just for extra weight, so I've got better muscle tone.
Exactly. Yeah. That's just an added benefit.
That's right.
But no, fantastic suggestion.
Great.
The helmet we thought was good, but yeah, body armor, if you can obtain it for whatever reason you want, add tornado on the list as well, because hey, a little extra armor is not a bad thing to have when all kinds of randomness is being tossed around by Mother Nature.
Indeed. In next episode, we'll talk about the types of NJI ratings you require for tornado armor.
Maybe we will have to go down that rabbit hole. It is quite the rabbit hole when you get talking about body armor.
I am willing, man. Like I want to make an air cannon and now throw debris at armor and see if we can evaluate that.
I think we need a sponsor for that.
Yeah,
if anybody knows a body armor company that wants a sponsor for science, of course.
Science. We are willing. I'll even throw on the white lab coat for y'all.
That makes it official. You need the white lab coat to science. It's just
no stethoscope.
Yeah.
But I'll put on
no, just the white lab coat and some pens in the pocket. Yeah.
Oh, definitely.
Awesome. But thanks for taking the time, John, to send in an email. It's much appreciated. He's also sent in a further email requesting a topic for us to cover. And he's asked for lockpicking. I know we've touched on lockpicking in the past. He's asked if we could do a follow-up on lockpicking. So we'll have to start bugging Alan and see if we can maybe get him to come back for a lockpicking episode. we'll
Would be
see.
very cool.
Yeah, but that is it was on the list before, but now it's definitely on the list since you've asked for it there, John. So we'll see what we can do about getting Alan on to talk about lockpicking, or maybe we can find another subject matter expert. But Alan's kind of our guy for lockpicking, so we'll see what we can do.
I would love to be around for that one. I got a million questions.
I already have my little practice locks right here, so
very nice, very nice.
Yeah, awesome. Well, with that, any shout outs, Gunny, before I forget to ask?
I got none at the moment for you, bud.
Perfect. No problem. With that, I'll bring episode 211 of the Canadian Prepper podcast to an end. You can find the podcast on Podbean, iTunes, Spotify, or, of course, your favorite podcast app. But please help us out. Submit a review. It does help other people find us. Where can everybody find you, Gunny?
Well, you can find me on Facebook, on YouTube, on Instagram, and, of course, on the Discord channel. And feel free to reach out to me anytime.
Awesome. And of course, we do record the shows live on Facebook and YouTube. If you want an early peek at the shows, you can subscribe on the YouTube channel, Canadian Prepper Podcast. Click the notifications tab and you'll get a nice little alert when we go live. For myself, you can get me at rapidsurvival.com. There's live chat there. You can also email feedback at prepperpodcast.ca. Thanks for joining us this evening. Until next time, be prepared, stay safe.
Keep learning.